By 2025, AI-powered cyber attacks are expected to outpace human defenders by a ratio of 10 to 1. 10 automated, intelligent, self-learning threats for every single human analyst trying to stop them. That is not a prediction from a science fiction novel. That is the reality cybersecurity professionals are waking up to every single morning. In the next 10 minutes, you are going to discover exactly how artificial intelligence is reshaping the entire battlefield of cybersecurity, both as the most powerful defensive weapon we have ever seen and as the most dangerous offensive tool ever placed in the hands of criminals. We will walk through the history, the hard data, the real-world consequences, and the one uncomfortable truth that most cybersecurity companies are deliberately avoiding in their marketing materials. Stay with us, because what comes in the second half of this video will genuinely change how you think about your own digital safety. To understand where we are today, you need to understand where this all started. Cybersecurity as a formal discipline really emerged in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when the first computer viruses began spreading through floppy disks and early internet connections. Back then, the defense was simple. You wrote a rule. You blocked the threat. You updated your antivirus database manually. The entire system was reactive, slow, and completely dependent on human beings recognizing a threat first. For decades, that model held up reasonably well because attacks were relatively simple and attackers were relatively few. But as the internet exploded in scale and complexity through the 2000s and 2010s, the volume of threats grew exponentially while the pool of trained cybersecurity professionals grew only modestly. By 2021, there were an estimated 3.5 million unfilled cybersecurity jobs worldwide. The gap between the number of threats and the number of humans qualified to fight them had become dangerously wide. That gap is precisely what made artificial intelligence such an attractive solution. If you cannot hire enough people, you build systems that think. And beginning around 2012, the major cybersecurity vendors started doing exactly that, integrating machine learning algorithms into their threat detection platforms. The results were immediate and striking. Systems could now analyze millions of data points simultaneously, identify patterns invisible to the human eye, and flag anomalies in near real time. The age of AI-driven cybersecurity had officially begun. But here is what nobody talks about when they celebrate those early wins. Every tool you build to defend can also be reversed and used to attack. The same machine learning models that learn to recognize malicious behavior could, in the wrong hands, learn to mimic legitimate behavior so perfectly that traditional defenses would never catch it. And that is exactly what happened. By 2018, researchers at major universities and private labs began demonstrating AI-generated malware that could adapt its own code to evade signature-based detection. This was not theoretical. IBM's own research team built a proof of concept called DeepLocker, a piece of malware that used deep learning to hide its malicious payload until it recognized a specific target, a face, a voice, a location. It could sit dormant inside legitimate software for months and activate only when it found its intended victim. The implications were staggering. Now let us talk about where we stand today, because the numbers tell a story that is difficult to process. According to a 2023 report from Darktrace, one of the leading AI cybersecurity firms, AI-assisted attacks have increased by 135% in a single year. IBM's Cost of a Data Breach report found that the average breach now costs organizations $4.45 million, a number that has risen consistently year over year. And phishing attacks, which remain the #1 entry point for cyber criminals, have become dramatically more convincing because generative AI can now produce perfectly written, contextually accurate, deceptive messages at massive scale with virtually no effort. Think about what that means practically. A criminal no longer needs technical expertise to craft a convincing phishing email. They simply prompt an AI system, describe the target, and receive a psychologically engineered message indistinguishable from legitimate communication. The barrier to entry for cybercrime has collapsed. So if the threat landscape has become this sophisticated, what are defenders actually doing about it? The answer is that AI on the defensive side has evolved just as rapidly, and in some areas, it is winning. Let us get specific about how. Modern AI security platforms use a technique called behavioral analytics, which means rather than looking for known malicious signatures, they build a model of what normal looks like for every user, every device, and every network connection inside an organization. The moment something deviates from that baseline, even slightly, the system flags it. This approach is called anomaly detection, and it has proven extraordinarily effective against zero-day attacks, threats that have never been seen before and therefore have no existing signature to match against. CrowdStrike, one of the dominant players in this space, reported that their AI systems now process over 1 trillion security events per week. No human team could ever review that volume. The AI surfaces only the threats that actually matter, reducing alert fatigue and allowing human analysts to focus their cognitive energy where it counts most. Another critical application is in threat hunting, the proactive search for attackers who have already penetrated a network but have not yet triggered any alarms. Traditional threat hunting required highly skilled analysts spending days or weeks manually sifting through logs. AI-powered threat hunting compresses that timeline to hours. It connects dots across thousands of events simultaneously and maps attacker behavior to known adversary tactics in real time. But here is where the analysis gets genuinely interesting, and where that uncomfortable truth I mentioned earlier comes into sharp focus. The cybersecurity industry has a significant incentive to sell you the narrative that AI is your savior. The global AI and cybersecurity market is projected to reach $60.6 billion by 2028, according to Markets and Markets Research. That is an enormous amount of money riding on the promise that buying the right AI platform will keep you safe. The reality is more nuanced. AI systems are only as good as the data they are trained on. If that training data contains gaps, biases, or outdated threat intelligence, the system will have blind spots. Sophisticated attackers know this. There is an entire emerging field called adversarial machine learning, where researchers and criminals deliberately craft inputs designed to confuse and fool AI detection systems. A carefully crafted piece of malware can be designed specifically to look normal to a particular AI model because its creator understands how that model makes decisions. This means that the AI arms race in cybersecurity is not heading toward a clear winner. It is heading toward permanent escalation, a cycle where every defensive innovation creates the conditions for a corresponding offensive innovation. Security teams need to understand this reality rather than outsource their thinking entirely to an automated platform and assume they are covered. The organizations that are genuinely winning this battle right now share a common approach. They use AI as a force multiplier for human expertise rather than a replacement for it. They invest in understanding the limitations of their AI tools with the same rigor they apply to understanding the capabilities. They train their people not just to use AI systems but to interrogate them, to ask why the system made a particular decision, and to catch the cases where the machine was confidently wrong. Google's security team published research in 2023 showing that hybrid human-AI security operations centers reduced mean time to detect a breach from an industry average of 197 days down to under 30 days. That is the power of the combination, not the AI alone, not the human alone, but the two working together with clear roles and genuine collaboration. The stakes have never been higher. Critical infrastructure, healthcare systems, financial networks, democratic institutions, every layer of modern society runs on connected technology that can be compromised. And the next generation of AI threats, including autonomous attack agents that can independently identify vulnerabilities, develop exploits, and execute intrusions without any human involvement, are already being tested in research environments today. Understanding this landscape is no longer optional for anyone who operates in the digital world, which in 2025 means essentially everyone. The rise of AI in cybersecurity is not a story about technology. Before you go, if you learned something valuable today, hit that like button right now. Subscribe to CyberShield Daily for a brand new video every single day. We will see you in the next one.